Thank you everyone for attending the Strategy MVP February webinar. We have several speakers up, but before I introduce them, just a few quick reminders. We do want to hear from you for 2023. We have several webinars scheduled. So we have one right now, we have one in May. We're looking at doing one in June just because we have so much interest and we have so many speakers presenting in topics, which is absolutely fantastic. So we will be adding another one in June, and we are looking at an APJ timeframe, but it will be recorded so that we can share it with those that are not in that time zone. And then we're also looking at doing September and November, but we will announce those dates later on as we get closer to those. Just a reminder, if you have any topics you want to present or you want to share with us, there's our email, smac@sitecore.com, and you'll get a response from us, or any questions, comments, etc. Please reach out to us, send an email. We're happy to help. And today's speakers, we're going to start with Walt Rolle, and then we're going to go into Chris and then Ishraq, and there's their topics already listed on the slide. I won't read them out to you. And with that, Walt, if you're ready, we will go ahead and let you do your presentation and your speaking.
All right, welcome everyone. I timed this a little under 14 minutes, but a blistering pace as usual. So I'll cruise through this. Today I'm presenting a way to approach year 2 of a roadmap, where you've already started a roadmap and now you're coming back to it and sort of evaluating what's next, knowing that things change often. So there's just a series of models here and ways you could approach it. So feel free to leverage these approaches as you see fit. So let's dive right in. So I like to start with some trends, because that helps drive sort of a sense of urgency and also sort of refresh what the indicators are in the market. You could verticalize these, which get some bonus points. These are just some stats I've pulled recently that I thought were interesting, and they're fairly generic, so you can use these in a variety of situations. When you look at these, you can see that it's challenging the content strategy a little bit, talking about these helper videos and sort of the TikTok culture, if you will. So that's kind of interesting from that standpoint. There's also some aspects here on tech alignment, which is great for us as Sitecore practitioners, because it's proving that we need to improve our collaboration with our marketing peers and enabling them through technology. And then lastly, it kind of hammers home the need to measure, which again is a lot of great work that we can do with these tools for measuring. So anyway, it's just the format and a couple stats, and you can research the ones that you like for your situation. So that usually stirs up some good conversation. So now into the agenda to really dig into, really this is just a variety of topics that generate backlog, I would say, at the core of it, right? And this is going to get a lot of people very busy. So those different topics are: what have we accomplished? What type of opportunities are there for our roadmap? And I have some sub items there to show. If you're using OKRs, reviewing those will often generate strategies for the next year. And then from a technical standpoint, are there any risks we can mitigate? So kind of coming from the developer lens and really rounding things out. And then naturally you would wrap up with recommendations. This is got our rock climbing theme throughout, so very exciting and outdoorsy if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, so the first one is a marketing solution summary. So, not super technical, but really just plotting, these are the tools we're using or that we purchased, and different integrations that we've established, and some of the directionality here. And this is getting everybody up to speed. You might have somebody in this roadmap envisioning session who's been on the program the whole time and works on it every day, and you may have someone from the leadership council that popped in after 6 months and wants to check on things. So this is a good way to just take stock of what we've accomplished in this particular scenario. We've established a team, we're actively developing multiple projects at the same time, and we even have stuff in production, and we're managing production support and that kind of thing. So very sort of significant enterprise operation is underway here, and we call out some of our key actors that we're supporting. Okay, let's move on to this digital maturity model review. This is Sitecore's maturity model from several years back. I call it an oldie but goodie. Hopefully I'll make my own one day, but have taken this and color coded it to basically show sort of the progression of accomplishments, right? And then also revisiting things that we said last year and what do we think our prediction is this year. So there's some things just kind of decorated around this original maturity map that you probably recognize. And I think what's interesting here is that we have a prediction for this year that if we can operationalize the measure and react, that will sort of push people to use the tools, and that will naturally sort of move maturity from left to right, if you will, if they can start doing that. And then you can see the color coding sort of matches that story. And it's pretty cool to see so much in 2021 that was considered established and now to be really starting to drive into the optimized after just 15 months or so of investments. Okay, so this is, I call this a platform adoption scorecard. It's not super fancy, but it's basically just showing these are the tools that you've acquired or that you have, and then these are the sort of functional areas that you've lit up, right? So that picture in and of itself sort of tells the story here. In this particular scenario, probably not uncommon to most folks here on the call, is that the experience manager has basically been fully implemented, almost everything on it. But the CDP and Personalize is sort of lagging behind. There's some event tracking that's been turned on, but we haven't really gotten the personalization experiences going. We're not running experiments, things of that nature. So again, as you look at this, you can tie that with a stakeholder need later on, and the two together sort of drives a need to do something, right? To add more backlog. Okay, so we were kind of flying high level, and now we're digging in a little deeper here, peeling back the onion, whatever analogy you want to use. The 4 specific things here, and again, there could be 10 different inputs. It really depends on like how you've been capturing things throughout your program and what kind of formats you're using. But this one in particular is going to look at stakeholder KPIs. We're going to look at a future state diagram. We're going to look at the roadmap that we've kicked this whole thing off with, and then also some epics that we wrote long ago, which if you're using those, could be fun to bring those back a few years later. Okay, so what are the stakeholders saying about what they want to track? I'm not going to read through these, but you can see that there's multiple stakeholders that are operating somewhat differently. So you don't have perfect harmonization. You can see some overlap as to what one stakeholder wants over another, and you can see things that are differences, right? So that's all really well to inform us how we can build once and use multiple times. And then on the bottom here, what we do is we bring back the opportunities from the maturity map, and it kind of ties it together, right? And I think I hinted that a couple slides ago. So the stakeholders say that they want to use personas on the site. I'm just picking one out here, and we need to establish our rules for our high priority segments. So those two might go together. Okay, let's keep going. This is a future state diagram. You've probably seen this on one of my blogs. I think the composable roadmap approach or something like that. Basically, it's a good picture to look at because we can start taking stock of, do we have that arrow? Are we really segmenting with our CDP or not? And these other good questions will come up. The bullets on the left are actually priorities the stakeholders brought up, early on, and then sometimes what happens is they get forgotten, or, something gets deprioritized, or we forget to talk about it. So if you've been taking good notes throughout the program, this is a good way to bring those back and say, hey, we did a workshop on modular content. Why are we not focused on that? We talked about how we wanted to push all this data down to our warehouse and do some insights that are sort of cross organization, but we haven't done that either. And you may see those continue to be deprioritized, or you may see it rise to the top. So again, it's a good way to just check all the various areas and make sure nothing is left behind. This is another part of the, I just called it a feature request audit. I'm just making up these names. What this is a roadmap from the outset of the program. But now what we did is we brought it back and have kept score with these little icon indicators. Yep, check mark, we did that thing. Or, oh, I thought we were going to do journey refactoring for your marketing automation flows, but we never actually got to it. Or there's things that we know we started on, but they're late. They have like a little clock icon here. And the color coding here is really plotting functional capabilities with the actual stakeholder projects, just to visualize those together. The overlaps are natural, and it should be. So typically the flow would be you light up the capability, and then the stakeholder project takes advantage of it, and then that continues to go. So a stakeholder wants to do personalization in Q1 of 2023, you should have seen something with the personalization stood up, in advance. Okay, I think that's all I want to say about this one. Okay, so this is another view, not super fancy here, but these are various epics that have been captured way back in a discovery. So you may have something similar if you've had this type of exercises, and you may have captured stories or traditional requirements documents or something like that. So this is really just a good way to go through one by one and say, somebody said surveys were important a year and a half ago. Why don't we have any surveys on the site, right? And how does that tie in with what the market is saying we should do with the statistics back in the beginning? And how does that compare with our OKRs? And how does it compare with customer feedback? And, so you can look at it from all those angles to find out what's really important or not. There's been a lot of data on here so far, so you're probably getting the sense that, hey, these clients are asking for more than they can actually do. And I think that's pretty common. We're usually more overloaded with requests than what we can actually get out the door. Okay, so let's move on to our OKR review. Fun rock climbing picture here. This is a simple format. The OKRs are being used in a program sense, and basically what we're trying to do is prove the value. It may not drive all the way down to an ROI figure, but if a stakeholder or sponsor pokes their head in on our program and wants to ask, like, what have all these people been doing for the last 6 months, it's nice to come back with a view like this and say, well, we have a theme that's about centralization. And our objective is to improve reuse. So as stakeholders 4, 5, and 6 come on board, that we're not rebuilding the same thing over and over. And we're actually tracking how many shared features we've created. We're refactoring features that should have been shared in the first place, but they weren't. And there's some work to do there from a technical standpoint. And then we're keeping score of how much development time we're actually saving. And then we mark those off and we put the actual results for full traceability in case anybody wants to dig in further. Your OKR themes may vary based on your business, right? Based on your vertical, et cetera. Okay, so now we're going to move into risk mitigation tactics. It looks like I've got about a minute left, so speed up a little bit. XM Cloud, this is probably on a lot of our minds, so this is really specific to this situation. This client is thinking about XM Cloud or said it was important, but didn't actually do it. So what we're doing here is we have like a checklist of things we probably need to look at to see, are we really ready to go to XM Cloud? It's not a comprehensive checklist. I need to develop this at some point, or maybe somebody in the community has done it. You should share with everybody. Have a nice, should probably be more like 100 items to look at, not just 5 or 6. But there's enough big rocks here to generate some good conversations about, hey, that thing that we built that deploys code to the CM instance, we should probably try to refactor that out into microservice or something. So that'll give the team more work to do if that's important. Now we look at the service map, which is a nice way to answer questions about, is this in or out of scope for the program? And as we look at things that are on the roadmap, these are things people are asking for throughout the year that we can't do. So we revisit it here and say, hey, do we need to actually start to do the compliance playbook and develop that? So I really like this. This has been really helpful just to manage day to day and to help keep my sanity. And then lastly, backlog candidates. So this is typically sourced from the dev team. Hey, who has ideas about, what you think we should be doing? What tech debt are you seeing? Things like that. That just helps round things out from the other's angle and not just the strategy standpoint. to make sure as you're putting stuff out on the street and committing source code, that if issues are bubbling up, that they're getting put back on the roadmap to get nurtured so they don't fall behind. And then to finish this up, you would then do some recommendations. I only did the first slide, but this is a good way to present a summary. And you can see this particular one is focused on efficiency and managing budget well and choosing our investments well and focusing on what our customers want. So again, kind of ties back with the statistics that I showed in the beginning, which is always a nice way to wrap things up. Okay, so I actually went a minute over. I must have went longer on something, but there we have it.
No worries. Great job. Thank you. All right, Chris, you are up next when you're ready.
So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. And Walt, thanks a lot for the really nice presentation. Really great to see the customer experience maturity model referenced, and as you call it, an oldie but goodie. I definitely agree with that. And now something new and hopefully cool and good. I'm going to talk about predictive analytics using Sitecore CDP data and organic search keywords. So to set the scene, I think we all realize the importance of organic search as a channel in digital marketing. But just to sort of put some statistics around it, we search a lot, we search often, we search for important things like when we make decisions such as buying products, and as a result, there's a lot of organic search is typically the number one referral channel for websites. So organic search is really important for marketers. And marketers would really like to, tap into organic search and, improve their SEO, et cetera. Now, Google Search Console is a free tool that Google provides, and Google Search Console shows you which organic search keywords are used to reach your website, which is super interesting. But the search queries are not tied to website sessions. So there's only so many insights that you can get using Google Search Console. And for those who are not familiar with Google Search Console, it looks like this. So this is a screenshot. It's from an actual customer implementation. But you can see things like the total number of clicks, the total number of impressions, click-through rate, position of search results page, and you can also see your queries here. So the queries, aka the keywords. So I've actually blurred them here, out of the because this is an actual production Search Console screen here. But your Search Console provides the query, each individual query, the number of clicks, the number of impressions, and it shows that by pages or landing pages, from organic search into the website. The countries where the searches took place from, where the users were located, the devices the users were using, and of course the ranking and the dates, so by day. So this is interesting, but in some way, but definitely marketers would like to know more. Marketers would like to understand, which keywords generate top conversions. So obviously, which of the keywords that users are using actually convert on the website. And marketers typically want to know things like, which of the branded search queries generate, things like, sessions and conversions, non-branded keywords, and very importantly, intent-based keywords. So, for example, intent are where the user uses words that sort of exemplify or reveal, the intent of what they're interested in. So if the keywords, the search query contains buy or visit or get or how to or when or where, et cetera, these are, kind of signals of what the user's intent is. So what if we could take the Google Search Console data and we could combine that data with Sitecore session data? Sitecore session data can be configured with events that show conversions. So, the idea here is, what if it's possible to use combine the keyword data, which search queries lead to which sessions, and the sessions that contain conversions. So to do this, what you would need to do, and what we've done, is, we have on the left-hand side, we have the Search Console data. So as I mentioned before, from Google Search Console has an API. It's also free to use. The API can be used to, query the Search Console data on a daily basis and get to know which search queries were used, how many impressions, how many clicks by date, the landing pages, the URLs of the landing pages where these queries landed on the website, the countries, the devices, and the placement. Now, on the right-hand side, we have Sitecore session data. Sitecore shows you the referring domain. So, for example, wildcard, Google wildcard. So any, Google co.uk, com.au, .com, .dk, etc. Any Google referring domain, we know that in the Sitecore session data. We also know the what's called the GCL ID. That's the Google Click ID. If there's a Google, if the referring domain contains Google and there's also a Google Click ID in the search query in the query string, then we know it's a visit from a paid ad from Google, which in itself is interesting. But we could exclude these so that we could get to know the organic sessions in the Sitecore session data. Sitecore session data also obviously contains, sessions by date, sessions by landing page, by country, by device. So, for example, let's say that there's a search query, best travel insurance, and the top conversion is get a quote. So what the idea here would be that we would want to narrow down the possible Sitecore sessions where, as I mentioned before, they're from Google, by date, by landing page, et cetera, so that we can sort of predict which sessions and of those sessions where conversions occur. So with this concept, we can go for each search query, predict the sessions and the conversions. That's what we would like to do. So we have two data sets here, and the idea is that we want to narrow down, using some kind of matching capability. And to do that, what we've done is that we've used a machine learning framework. And essentially, what the machine learning framework is doing is it's crunching the data to estimate to determine the matching sessions based on the Google Search Console data and the Sitecore session data. It's using things like weighting, decision trees, et cetera, to predict which keywords map to which sessions and which conversions that occur on the website. If you're interested in learning more about this machine learning framework, I have a link here on the screen. But essentially, what you want to do is turn it into a math problem and crunch it through this machine learning framework. And let me just point out that I want to give a shout out to my colleague Niels Kuhnel, who has done this part of the project. So here's the result. So if you are extracting the Sitecore session data, extracting the Google search keywords, matching them up, running them through the machine learning algorithm, and then pointing Power BI at the database where this data resides, then this is what you would get. So let me try to first relate this to a couple of real world examples. So let's say that it's a scenario where it's the website is an insurance company. And so you have branded keywords. So for example, Geico is a brand, an insurance company in various countries in the world. But it's the brand name. Geico is the brand name. So Geico Insurance would be an example of a branded keyword. A non-branded keyword could be an example like best travel insurance. So for example, if I'm shopping around for travel insurance, I might put search for best travel insurance. And that would be a non-branded keyword, very important thing for marketers. And then an example of an intent-based keyword could be buy car insurance online. So there's the intent of the user is revealed. So on the right-hand side, I have a screenshot of a dashboard, and looking at the dashboard, we have areas here where we have keywords. Now I've blurred the keywords out, out of confidentiality for the site for which this dashboard is used. But what I have here is organic keywords both. Sorry, so obviously all these are organic keywords, but we have top keywords rated here in the table, which I'll explain in a bit detail in a second, and then we have filtered for the intent-based keywords. So from an overview perspective, we have some KPIs or some data points up here. We have information from Google Search Console, just the pure information, the number of impressions, the number of clicks, and the click-through rate. And then we have some of the machine learning-based predictions here. So we have the total number of predicted conversions. We have the predicted conversion rate overall. And then using some filtering, we can get a more specific idea of the number of branded keyword conversions, the number of non-branded predicted conversions. And then we can also do filtering on this KPI where we're getting to know, many of the intent-based keywords that we're predicting have generated a conversion. And I should explain, make it clear that in this example, we're focused on one top conversion, and that could be, for example, request a quote, as I mentioned before, in the insurance example. Now, looking at the tables, we have, each keyword, and sorry they're blurred out, but these are the actual keywords coming from Google Search Console. And what we have in the table is where we're able to sort them. For example, the predicted click-throughs, the predicted number of conversions, the percentage of conversions, and the conversion rate for each of the keywords that are represented in the table. So here I've got it filtered by this column, and you have an indication that in some cases that the keyword that's clicked the most, produces the number of conversions, but the conversion rate can be different. So this gives the marketer insights into the performance of keywords, and obviously they're optimizing SEO and optimizing these keywords. So they can do things like looking at the landing pages, looking at the content, et cetera, for the keywords that they're interested in. Then, because all of this is put into a Power BI type data model, you can use a lot of filtering. So it's possible to filter the keywords by the intent-based expressions, how to, buy, where, visit, et cetera. And that gives further insights into the performance of the predicted conversions based on each keyword. So, and then there's also a search query here where you can do all sorts of searching through the keywords, looking for different, based on the different keywords, and filtering by geography, filtering by device, filtering in different ways, getting more and more insights. So, so that's basically the idea. And taking it one step further, just to wrap it up, what is possible in a continuation of this idea is that you could take the keyword predictions together with the Sitecore session ID and the user ID and join that up with CRM, if there's a CRM ID, on the website, email address on the website, and use these predictions towards, CRM segmentation, email targeting, call center targeting, personalization, in scenarios like, churn prevention, upsell, cross-sell, et cetera, segmented email targeting. So that's it. I meant to start a timer, so and see where I end up on the 15 minutes. Sorry, I didn't do that, but I think more or less that's all my time. And that is my little session here on, predictions using Sitecore data and organic search keywords. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. That was very, very good. All right, Ishraq, you are up next.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Hopefully I'm going to stick to time. I usually talk a lot. So, so the agenda for today is just to understand how I came up with this very, very long title, which is first-party data using Sitecore CDP in a cookieless world. And I like to add this slide usually because if anyone of you have already joined me in my previous sessions, I typically like to mix both technical with marketing and strategy and business. There's always a hint of something out there. I like to look into this diagram because it's always going to tell us in a SaaS world today where Sitecore stands, we have various options to work with. And it's really important to understand both from a marketing and strategy perspective, how the underlying word of all of these offerings works in order to understand, like, yeah, if I want to integrate with this system and that system, how does Sitecore do that? And an important thing as well is the arena is now for almost everything, right? It's no longer a website that's only built on Sitecore. We're talking about anything out there that can connect with our engagement platform. Now, I work with a client, and we're a commerce website, and we track almost everything. So we have Google Analytics that only used by the marketing team for tracking. We have Sitecore Analytics that only used by the website team for tracking. And we also have Marketo forms that push customer data into Salesforce that's only used by the marketing automation team. And unfortunately, none of that data is being used for personalization. We're just doing targeted promotions and personalization for select set of customers. And one of the main reasons for that is the teams, although we have these various different systems, and granted, in a previous session that I've done and this council a couple of years back, I've showcased how we can do that using Sitecore XP. There was no intention to spend time customizing the current XP solution that we have to bring all of these customer data together. So a CDP is a starting point for us to look into options to bring these various teams together. But how does the tracking work? And again, the main point in tracking and measuring customer interaction with our sites has been for so long is cookies. And as we move on into this realization, or as some people actually consider that as the cookie apocalypse, we can see that as everyone is being conscious about their personal data, how that's being used, we have regulations and rules about GDPR. It's really important to understand, like, these cookies that are being used, at which level in our tech stack we rely on it, and how it's being used and consumed for doing these tracking and measurement. And the interesting part, when you look into this progression over the time about the cookie journey, as everyone is talking about third-party cookies. So when we look at the less in cookie, for the most part, we're concerned about third-party cookies. So it's really important to make the distinction between first-party and third-party cookies. So first-party cookies are those that are owned by your domain. These are the ones that you create in order to track your customers, provide them with personalized content and product predictions, right? Consent has always been something required from you. And I say like always, because now we're only developing experiences with the privacy in mind. It's no longer an option. We always see these cookie policy and cookie management all over the place. Third-party cookies are those are leveraged by an integration you have. So for example, let's say I want to buy a bike. So I've bought a bike. As a brand, I'm going to target this customer with cross-selling accessories for their bike. An insurance company would be interested to provide me with insurance against bike accidents, right? So this information can be passed over to this third-party insurance company through third-party cookies. Now, this shift from a third party, based on the limitation that we're talking about, where everyone is shying away, I'm not going to even say like killing cookies, but it's more of like phasing out from, yes, using third party cookies, especially as the technology is no longer going to support that, towards a first party data or first party cookie. This is where brands start to think about the value of the information that they collect and where do they store all of these information. And we're talking about these data. It's anything that you collect as a visitor interacts with your brand, whether that's through an online or an offline channel, any kind of information. And the second party data and third party data, like those that can be shared through partnership, right? If I go now and sign up for the SUCCON, my information could be shared with the sponsors of the event, right? As an example, or information can be tracked and used by advertisements. So these information are still needed for me to build this 365 or a holistic review of my customer profile. It's still needed to build an enhanced personalization. However, we need the mindset to shift towards turning all of these information into a first-party approach. So I own them. So from a GDPR perspective, whether you're the controller or the processor, you are working within the guidelines and the regulations about managing and holding this data. And as we're talking about first-party data coming from multiple channels, you know, through your desktop, your mobile app, or even through a kiosk, whatever that channel is, this is not the only way we look into first-party data. And I took this diagram, I like this example a lot. It's actually an example of an individual who changed their location multiple times. And every time they interacted with your service, they have signed up with a new email. They've used a different channel or a medium. They used their watch, they have used YouTube, whatever that was is. So at the end of the day, the information that you're getting out of these individuals are still first-party data, right? Because they're signed up for your service. You're getting this information firsthand from them. However, your personalized experiences, if you want to go through the way it's being provided in this scenario, it's going to be disconnected because the way we are identifying this individual, and let's say through an email, has changed from one interaction to the other. Same thing with the location. These are some metadata and metrics that we typically use when we do personalization. So it's really important to keep in mind that a first-party data is not only bringing information about a single individual from multiple channels, but also making sure that we are unifying these information into this single profile. And this is where CDP comes into place, because if we look into Sitecore CDP in the scenario, it's going to be like this big repository that allows us to push first-party, second-party, third-party data into a single location and make sure that it's available for activation later on through personalization, A/B testing, or whatever your business needs. Now, the main concept in trying to unify these information through a single, like we said, like we're going to put all of our information in one place, right? The other one is making sure that the identity of these individuals are unified to create this holistic customer profile. So identity resolution is one of the main concepts to understand that and how it fits within cookies and CDPs. So guests are the main building block in CDP, and a guest is like the individual that interacts with your brand through whatever channel they are. Main three types I want to cover because they are important in this discussion. The visitors, so these are individuals who interacted with your brand, and you identify them as a visitor based on a metric that you set as a business. So my business rule would say if someone interacts with my brand for at least 5 minutes, then I'm interested in tracking them. A customer is a guest who provided me with more information that makes it easy for me to identify who they are. And finally, a retired guest is those who have been interacting with my website, and later on, my system was able to identify them as an existing customer. So I ditch the older profile, retire it's no longer acceptable, and migrate to the customer. So identity resolution with CDP is the process of identifying these anonymous guests and turning them into a customer or putting them within any of these guest types that we've talked about. And the main way to handle that is using identity rules. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. So a customer visits my website. How does Sitecore CDP collect and identify them? It triggers what's called an event, an identity event. So an identity event is basically a set of information about the visits that currently I have in sessions. Could be a channel, could be a type, could be a page, point of sale, whatever medium that has been, in addition to a number of identifiers. These identifiers are the ones that are used to build the identity rules. So I am intending to track and identify a guest to my CDP using an identifier or using a personal data. So an identifier is something unique. So it's provided by you as a business. So this is not like an auto-system generated identifier for you. It's something that you set as a metric. So I'm going to say like an email, it has to be always provided. Or I can say like my CRM ID, or it could be my Google Analytics tracking. It has to be present. So this is something you as an organization define and decide that this is how am I going to track and identify a guest. On the other hand, sorry, I'm jumping again. So I took this screenshot, like imagine this is like a nice formatted table for the identity event. So if I'm using unique identifiers for my identity event, so when someone interacts with my website, the CDP will trigger an algorithm, and we call it a linking algorithm to evaluate the guest profile. So I'm going to decide based on the identifier, which is a list of objects. In this case, my identifier is an email, and go look into existing guest profiles. So if it matches the email, then that means I can use this and fetch the information and migrate them to a customer guest profile. If not, I'm going to create a new guest profile for this user. On the other hand, we have personal data, and it has a list of all the personal data that you have in mind. It's limited to 2.0. So in the future, if you're already an organization that used this in the past, you can work with it. But in the future, we can still work towards an OPII kind of identification. Same process, it evaluates. The caveat is that if, sorry, yeah. So here it's the same concept, moving from customer visitor to a customer profile. Now the interaction with the website could be through an online or an offline channel. So an online channel, Sitecore uses a stream API. So this stream API, once is triggered, it's gonna either put you, and this is based on real interaction. It's gonna decide you're a customer or a guest based on that algorithm. However, an offline algorithm, on the other hand, uses a batch API. So if you're someone new to Sitecore, you're gonna migrate all your customer data into Sitecore, or you are, continuously fetching and migrating stuff to Sitecore overnight and all of that, we use the batch API. The caveat in this API is that if it's a matched guest profile, we put that as a customer. If it's not, we add that, we create a new customer because we know these. So these are not anonymous guests, so we can call them visitors. It's an actual customer profile. So where cookies does fall within that, within the CDP. So whether we're using a web app or, like the website or using a native API, we have two ways of interacting with it. If we're using a tag manager, we can use the Booksever JavaScript library. If not, and if it's using a native app, we can use direct HTTP and then a hybrid, which is a mix. And what the Booksever JavaScript library does is to capture all of these information and put that into a cookie. So cookie, and in this case, it allows you to track all these information. This is where the first party cookie plays in the CDP functionality. However, if we're using some application that doesn't allow us, like Safari and stuff like that, we can still have an option to use local storage to collect this information and then use any of the APIs to push this information. So basically that's it. It's just understanding that the technicalities behind why we can say like CDP is supporting GDPR and cookie first and first party data, cookies and data within the CDP, and how we can leverage that information to make sure that we are compliant and we're providing a better personalization experience for our customers. That's it for me.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a few minutes left. If there's any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. I don't see anything there now, but if there are, please feel free to type them in there. I'm just gonna check. I don't see anyone typing. Nope, I don't see anything. All right, well, we can end early. If you guys do have questions for any of the speakers, please feel free to send those into the SMAC email address. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our presenters. Great job, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.